When the sun goes down, the stars come out. From deep in the heart of Texas, it's the Star at Night. Coming to you from the Cowboys facility at the Star in Frisco. With your hosts, Kelsey Charles and David Hellman.
What's up, everyone? Kelsey Charles and David Hellman here, and you are tuning in to another episode of The Star at Night. David,
Kelsey,
since we last connected, there have been some changes, updates in the league, namely in the form of, you have one more game to work, my friend, or at least a regular season game, if you will. The NFL is officially adding a 17th regular season week, and they are chopping a preseason game. There's a couple other things to go into that, but in 2021, 2022, Dallas Cowboys are going to be facing off against the New England Patriots. So tell me what that means. Break it down for us here in Cowboys Nation. What's your evaluation on this switch?
You know what? You made me mad because you were like, oh, it's one more game. That's actually not true because it's the same amount of games that I have to work, but if I'm going to work this extra game, at least it means something. Because Let me tell you something. There's no bigger waste of time from a sports writer's perspective than that fourth preseason game. I mean, I know guys are playing for roster spots, but it is ugly and boring. And I'm sorry if you feel differently. So at least it'll mean something. I don't know, man. I don't think it was necessary, but it was going to happen regardless of what I thought. There's way too much money at stake. So Cowboys are going to New England this year. That'll be fun. Hopefully it's early in the season because you might remember it was pretty miserable last time they went. So let's try to get that game in September, NFL. I don't want to go back and do another November rainstorm. Ooh, November rain. I didn't even do that on purpose.
That was good. Jerry Roger, figure some things out for my guy. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's been 44 years since the NFL has changed their schedule. And I think if we were to be a thinking person and looking at new TV deals, it kind of makes sense.
We're not thinking
the money.
People. We are not.
I am here to help you with that because, like you just mentioned, my friend, ain't nobody worried about that fourth preseason game. Not to mention, I just feel like if you look at the skill level that's on the field, there's research out there. There's gonna be a lot more injuries in that fourth preseason game. At least that's what they're trying to sell us, and I may or may not be buying that. Some of the more veteran players are probably not too thrilled at the fact that they're going to have a little bit more wear and tear on their bodies. But again, it is a business, and business is booming for the NFL, at least hopefully in the future. And that 17th game is going to mean something. But I also, Dave, it's going to mean something for some individual players too. Namely, it could mean something for one Dakota Prescott because I was doing a little digging. And being that we are going to add another regular season game, some of these records that are in place could be broken. And our guy, if he plays like he was playing in the first couple of games this past year before, the thing that we don't want to speak about happened.
We do know. Yeah, we do know.
He could be poised to break Peyton Manning's record if he continues to average. I mean, listen, this is a big if, you guys. But, if anyone can do it, I'm going to go ahead and say it's our newly minted, newly paid man himself. So just go ahead and average 371 or more so passing yards in a game, Dakota, and it'll be great. It'll be perfect.
What are we even saying right now? That, who cares? Because it's completely different. It's a whole extra game. Yeah, 5,000-yard seasons used to be ridiculously rare, and now it happens on a very normal basis. And this is only going to continue the offensive explosion in the NFL. The records don't really worry me that much. I don't really care about that. The big thing for me is, it's a lot of wear and tear on these guys, but the NFL did add that into the CBA, that it's more money going into the players' pool, so the players stand to benefit. I think you could wrap this whole thing up by just saying, money machine go, and that is the story of the NFL in 2021. We got a new CBA, we got new TV deals, we got an extra game. We making money. Well, they are. I'm not. You're not. But hey, that's all right. Speaking of money, there's going to be a whole new class of millionaires coming into the NFL here in the next, 3 weeks. We brought an old familiar face from Cowboy Drafts Past in to talk about it. Stay with us. All right, Kelsey, it's my favorite time of year because there's no more hiding from draft talk. Like, it's April. It's not too early anymore. We're right in the thick of it. And you know what? Linebacker, believe it or not, continues to be a topic of conversation around this team. I wonder why. So, for a variety of reasons, I'm pumped about our next guest. He's a former linebacker, a former Dallas Cowboy, and a guy who might know a thing or two about some of the linebacker prospects in this class. So with that, welcoming in our guy, Bobby Carpenter. Bobby, thank you so much for joining the show.
No, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to catch up with some people down there in Big D.
So I don't want to age you, and I don't want to age myself either. I promise you I'm not blowing smoke because I'm an LSU fan anyway. So not even as an Ohio State fan, man, I remember – I don't know if I've ever had more fun watching a linebacker core than you, A.J. Hawk, and Anthony Schlegel back in the mid-2000s. And I'm just curious, as talented as y'all were and as many accolades as y'all racked up, how does this upcoming Buckeye linebacker core compare to y'all with Baron Browning, Pete Werner, Justin Hilliard, and Tuff Borland? I mean, it seems like your entire linebacker core is going to get drafted this year.
Yeah, it's a rarity to have that many upperclassmen, and all of them are seniors. None of them are coming out early, so to have that happen, definitely very unique. You know, as AJ Schlegel and myself, to have three seniors like that, unique as well. They have one more guy. They rotated guys through. You have guys that suffered injuries. Tuff Borland had obviously a big setback towards Achilles. Justin Hilliard's tore an Achilles, tore both bicep tendons. So those guys have kind of battled through some things, and they were going to be great physical run stuffing linebackers. And then you got two guys that are very, very different, but I think we'll probably get drafted around the same time in Pete Werner and then Baron Browning. Pete played safety in high school, very, very steady players, sure tackler, runs a lot better, I think, than people give him credit for. He's a very solid athlete. And it was going to be your classic, box linebacker you can put in there and, off the ball guy and let him run and make plays. And you let him be involved in coverage as well. And then you got Baron Browning, who is a tall guy. He's got length. He has athleticism. They tried him in the middle. And this is where, a lot of scheme comes into play when you draft players. You have to have a plan for them. And Baron Browning, who is from Texas, is a long dude, athletic, and he played on the edge in high school. Rushed the passer a lot, covered tight ends, get involved that way. Play him off the ball at Ohio State. He struggled with that initially. Finally, the last 2 years said, you know what? When you're off the ball, we're going to let you be more coverage. It's going to be more sub-package downs. You line you up on the edge of the line of scrimmage some. You'll be able to rush, get on backs, get on tight ends, rush against tackles. You're athletic enough to cover tight ends and backs out of the backfield. And so it really was a perfect fit in a mix that he's kind of the guy that the NFL scouts are looking for. Teams love to have guys like that with how prolific the passing attack is now. He's a guy that's going to be on the field probably 2 out of every 3 plays, and he can be an impact player for you.
So you kind of alluded to it just now, but we talked about the linebackers of then and the linebackers of now. And how do you feel like the game has changed for your position, being that the league is, like you said, a little bit more pass happy than it used to be?
Yeah, well, if you can't be on the field for 3 downs, it's going to be tough to be someone who, is working their way into the rotation. Kind of gone are the days of the guy who could come in and be a first and second down linebacker. That guy's playing, maybe 10 or 15 snaps a game now. You have to be able to cover the pass. You'd love to be able to have some value in obviously the rush attack and in coverage, whether it's man-to-man or on backs. Understanding the concepts of zones. So there's a lot there. You have to be able to run. I think we saw in the Super Bowl with what happened with Tampa Bay with Devin White and Levante David, how athletic those guys were and what they were able to do to a very, very talented Chiefs offense that was very lateral, tons of speed, and then obviously had Travis Kelsey. They were able to slow down that screen game of Andy Reid, really stop the running game, for the most part. And then Travis Kelsey had a big day, but they were kind of meaningless yards later in the game that they were kind of giving him the short stuff. So they did a terrific job. So there may be a resurgence, a little bit of value placed on those inside backers, those off the ball linebackers. If they can do it all, there might be a place for them.
Which, another thing along that same line I wanted to ask you about, a big part of Devin White's game last year was, and a little bit unusual for an inside linebacker, the guy had 9 sacks, and putting pressure on the quarterback is a big part of his game. I'm curious, another Big Ten guy that's a big name to know in this draft is Micah Parsons. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on, and within the last week or two, we've seen the type of freakish athleticism that he possesses. Is that maybe a new direction that this position is going in, that maybe even, to make up for maybe a lack of coverage skill, or if that's not your specialty, maybe we'll see more linebackers getting after the quarterback from different parts of the defense?
The linebackers just get more and more athletic as time continues to roll on. And so now you have guys that are, maybe a little bit smaller. You don't have quite the guys that are 255, 250 pounds that are playing off the ball, more in the range of 225 to 240. You have guys like Micah Parsons that can roll, and they can run really, really well. They can get after the quarterback. They're effective rushers. They're effective blitzers. And Micah Parsons, you've got a guy down in Dallas and Jalen Smith, and Micah Parsons is basically kind of Jalen Smith before the injuries, and so he has all of that elite level explosion. A highly recruited guy coming out of high school, and he's really transitioned well and did a really good job at Penn State. Now, he hasn't played for a year, so there may be a little bit of a learning curve early on in camp, but I would assume if he's drafted, he's going to be ready to go, and they'll find an impact place for him to play.
So I guess it's fair to say, I know Micah is over at Penn State, but it feels like what you were mentioning with the players that are at Ohio State, the Ohio State has a case for calling itself LBU. I have a final question for you, though, because obviously we know a lot of discussion has been around your quarterback. And do you feel like Cowboys Nation has any fears that this quarterback of yours might fall to a team that would be in the NFC East, and therefore we'd have to face him a couple times every year?
Oh, goodness. So, you've got Philly in there.
Yep.
They seem pretty good with Jalen Hurts. The Giants, it seems like they're going to maybe roll one more year at their situation. Washington's kind of the wild card, with what they're trying to do. They bring in Fitzpatrick. He's obviously electric. He can get some things done. They've got some young quarterbacks on their roster. I don't necessarily think you would have to worry, but here's the thing that's interesting about this is, I believe Justin Fields, a lot of people probably have him evaluated as top 2-3 quarterback talent-wise at worst. Now, maybe there's a little seasoning because he only got truly a season and a half, and it was disjointed this year due to COVID and the starts and stops for the Big Ten. So maybe his film wasn't quite as clean as you would have liked because he was kind of pressing a little bit, and maybe there wasn't quite the continuity. But I think people look at that and say, this guy's an unbelievable talent. Maybe if he falls, heaven forbid, outside of the top 8, you start getting to 9, 10. I could see somebody coming up and getting him. If you're a Washington, like, hey, we could draft him. He can sit behind Fitzy for a year. He's one of the best mentors in the game, and potentially, roll with him. Like, I think New York's probably pretty set on Daniel Jones, and Philly, unless he really fell, I think they're probably going to try to give Jalen Hurts a shot. But yeah, there is that possibility, I think, for Washington to potentially go out there and try to get him. Remember, Ron Rivera's in Carolina with Cam Newton. I'll tell you this, I think Justin throws a better ball than Cam, but physically not quite as tall, but nearly just as imposing. He's big legs, thick guy, 230 pounds, rock solid, can really run. So he provides an added element there that not many quarterbacks. He looks like a linebacker. When you see him in person,
he does.
Like if you put him and Micah Parsons side to side, like they're kind of indistinguishable. So he provides that extra element that as a linebacker, you hate to see that guy in the open field because if you really wanted to, he could probably try to run you over, and no one wants to do that.
Well, so fingers crossed, we don't have to face that.
Hey, I was about to say, shame on the NFL if they let Justin Fields fall to 10. I was about to say I'd love to use him as trade bait to get back and get some picks, but I want no part of Justin Fields going to what is already a very nice Washington roster. So please, no thank you. That would, let's spare us from that.
Big thanks again to Bobby for joining us and to Favor for sponsoring that interview. Guys, we are going to break down the rumor mill for you all this offseason. That segment and more is coming up next.
Welcome back to the Star at Night. Kels, I said it in the last segment. It's April. It's draft month. For lack of a better phrase, it's lying season. Every year at this time, you see it. Everybody's trying to get an edge in the NFL draft. Everybody's talking out of their butts to try to get the player that they want to come to them.
To put it nicely.
And we're here to dig through it all. So we're calling this segment Rumor Has It. Probably substitute rumor with lie, but we'll see. We'll see at what that how that shakes out. Which, since the last time I talked to you, there was a blockbuster trade in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers jumped all the way up to number 3 with the Miami Dolphins for their number 3 overall pick. And rumor has it, they're targeting Alabama's Mac Jones. What do you make of this?
I mean, honestly, I think this one might be where there's smoke, there's fire. John Lynch seems really hell-bent on paying a backup quarterback $25 million. I don't get it, but you know what? I don't have to. It's not my team. Even Shefty's on it, Daniel Jeremiah, they are both convinced that the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones with this pick. So, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say there's some truth to this. I don't think this fan base, let alone this front office, is sold on Jimmy G. I think he struggled with injury issues, despite the fact that, he did take them to the big game a couple seasons ago. But you know what? That was then and this is now. So, Mac Jones, pack your bags. I'm pretty positive you are heading out to the West Coast, my friend.
I hope it's a rumor for their sake.
All right. I gotta get your thoughts on this one because I was a little worried when I heard it, and I'm pretty positive a lot of Cowboys' Twitter is freaking out over it. So, rumor has it that the Cowboys have not had a phone call with Patrick Surtain. Apparently, he might even be saying so himself. What are your thoughts on this?
I have no thoughts on this because, like I said, the NFL loves to lie in April. First of all, even if that's true, there's still an entire month left where you can contact these guys. Teams are doing virtual interviews. You have your 30 Zoom calls. Guys aren't allowed to the facility anyway because of COVID concerns. So I think it's a much smaller emphasis than it would normally be. You're not quite getting as much out of it as you normally would. Secondly, talking to a guy is not a precursor for drafting him. We've seen it as recently as a couple years ago. The Cowboys had very little, if any, contact with Connor McGovern before they drafted him in the 3rd round. They famously didn't talk to Morris Claiborne in 2012. Spare me the hand-wringing about how that worked out. The point is, it doesn't matter. And on top of that, teams don't want to telegraph their picks, so they can lie about it if they want to. It means nothing to me.
What? You mean they're not 100% being honest publicly?
It's
they're
almost
not
like
giving away their picks?
I know, it's really bizarre to think about that. I don't know what to make of it, but whatever.
But I do want to get your thoughts on what you make of this next concept, if you will. I am hearing we're going to go and talk Ohio a little bit more because your guy, Joey B, up in Cincy, apparently word on the street is that he might have a shot at reuniting with his former teammate from LSU, Jamar Chase, even though they desperately need help reinforcing that O-line. So your mans can actually stay on the field. Is this a rumor, or are you kind of hoping there might be some truth to this?
I think there is some truth to it. I think it's possible, but I'm not hoping for it. And listen to me. it would be really exciting if my son Jamar got to reunite with my son Joe and they could make beautiful football music together. But did you see why Joe Burrow didn't finish the season last year? Like, was I the only one that watched that happen? Was I the only one that watched Washington murder him? I feel like I need to say a prayer. Like, I'm going to light my Joe Burrow prayer candle and say a prayer for his safety. Bengals, what are you doing? Go draft an offensive tackle and protect my mans. Like, you could go get a receiver later. Go draft Kadarius Toney or Rashad Bateman or, Lord, there's a million of them. Go get Tylan Wallace. Like, Jamar Chase is great, but who's going to throw him the damn ball if Joe gets killed? Please don't do this. Draft a tackle, please.
You've already got a couple guys in the building that can catch some passes. I think you're doing just fine in that category relatively to the other issue at hand. I want to talk quarterbacks a little bit more because word on the street is that it's a possibility. It's an option at least per the NFL guidelines and rules, if this were to pass, that one Jalen Smith could wear a number 9, and Michael Gallup might even be trying to get his way into a 4 jersey.
The Dallas Cowboys are trolling us, and because it's the offseason, we have no choice but to oblige them. So, for the record, the rule hasn't even passed. The Kansas City Chiefs are proposing a rule change that would let skill players, linebackers, basically everybody but linemen, wear any number from 1 to 59. So Jalen Smith could move into 9 if he wanted to. CeeDee Lamb could theoretically move back into his college number 2. And these guys are having tons of fun with it on social media. The rule hasn't passed. But, like, is this where we are as a society?
Yes, it
is. Is this where we are that we're that worried about it? Which, by the way, listen, Tony Romo's an amazing football player and a Cowboy great. Jalen Smith is wearing the number that Randy White and Chuck Howley wore. So, like, spare me this idea that 9 is supposedly more sacred than 54. Stop. We give 88 and 94 out to guys. We let guys wear 54 on a regular basis. Like, I don't want to hear it. And on top of that, the rule doesn't even exist yet. So, like, I just need such a large chill pill from the entire Cowboys fan base, please.
Hey, listen, God bless our equipment managers. I mean, if that rule comes down, I don't even want to figure out the switches that would take place. I can't even. But yeah, it's a lot.
Let's see if they even pass the rule, and then we'll figure it out. Like, it is not that stressful. I promise you, it's not worth getting that stressed about. But hey, next time we do the show, maybe we'll have some new numbers to talk about. In the meantime, we're going to put together a 2021 mock draft of our own. We're going to make this Cowboys football team better next week. So stick with us for that. Until then, Kelsey, thanks for being part of the Star at Night, and thank you all for watching the Star at Night. We will see you next time.